one of the places that I lived was Mishawaka, Indiana, I spoke to you about. And I joined a church there. The minister at that church was a 97-year-old man who had married a young chickadee, as he called her. She was 78. And they had this beautiful marriage, and he taught. He really did teach. And one Sunday, he taught about faith. And he said, you have to build your faith muscle. Everyone has a measure of faith, but you have to exercise it and build it. And so he gave us an exercise for the week. He said, if you have a headache, I want you to pray to God to take that headache away and have faith that God will do it. Now, in an hour, if you still have a headache, take an aspirin. And the next time, go for a little longer, but you got to build that faith, he kept saying. And
Yeah.
that struck me as very interesting. Um, I remember in the Bible, Jesus saying that everyone has a measure of faith. And if you have faith, you can do this, you can do the other. But I really wasn't really sure what that meant until I had an experience in Indiana where I actually heard a voice that sounded like God. There was no one else in the room.
Mhm.
And up till that time, I had been praying this prayer every day. It was for one of my family members to grow up to be a wonderful woman. I prayed it every day because she was in a kind of a precarious situation. And one night after I prayed, I heard a voice. And the voice said, why do you keep asking me for the same thing every night? You don't think I heard you? The voice was audible, so I responded, well, I guess you heard me. The voice went on to say, so, and this was in March. The voice went on to say, and let me just say, my birthday is in August.
Okay.
The voice went on to say, your birthday is coming up. If you ask your friend who is a great baker to make your birthday cake, and she said yes, would you ask her every single day? Are you going to make the cake? Can you make the cake? Please make the. Are you going to make the? No, you would never ask her again because you trust that she's going to make the cake. You just go ahead making all of your other plans because you know the cake is taken care of. Well, yeah, that makes sense. The, the voice went on to ask me this. And this was back in the days when we had in person meetings and we'd have these breaks. And so the voice said, suppose you were in a training and now you were given a break. And a gentleman who was also in the training zone you had never met before this particular day announced to the group that he was going to the vending machine to get a Coca-Cola. And did anybody want one? If you wanted one, you would say, yeah, I'll take one. And you would go into your in your wallet, get your money, give it to the man. And as you're giving it to him, say, thank you. Thank you. You say, yeah. But you don't know that man. You don't know if that man is coming back with the soda, running away with all the money. You don't know, but you've already thanked him in advance of getting what you asked for. But you don't do that with me. You keep asking and asking. Instead of asking, knowing I'm a God of integrity, I'm going to do it. You can say thank you right away and go about making your plans as if the cake is already baked. That was the first lesson for me. To
That was
ask you once and then to stay firm that if it's in God's will, it's going to happen. That if I go to God with it again, to only go to God with thanksgiving, like, thank you for doing it. I don't see it yet, but I didn't see the Coca-Cola before you gave that to me either. So thank you for doing it and to keep doing it. And that has really done me well. And so you, a few months passed after that, and I found myself in another situation where I woke up in the middle of the night and there was this face looking at me. And I thought, okay, I'd never seen this image's face before. It was not a real person. And the image said to me, if you want me to help you with your mother, you have to come home now. I was living in Indiana, and that was in February. And I thought, I don't know this face. I've never seen this face before. My mother is not sick. There's nothing happening. I went into prayer, and as I called, Spirit said, it's time to come home. Well, my employer said, eh, they're not transferring people. At that time, I was working for IBM. In fact, for the first time in IBM's history, they're laying people off. So you will not be getting a transfer from Indiana to Maryland. That's just not going to happen. But then I thought, I've asked God for this, and I believe that it's time for me to leave. And so, remembering the conversation I had with God earlier, I decided to act as if the job was mine. The new position in Baltimore was mine. I packed up my clothes. I did not sign a new lease. I gave away things I didn't want to take. I contacted the moving company. I had no money. I was a young person who lived paycheck to paycheck. So all of this was done on faith. I packed everything up. My office mates are laughing at me, literally, ha, 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 as they will see me preparing and doing these things. And some other things happened, and I got some reminders. And one of the reminders was I went to Chicago, which was not far from Indiana. And there in the middle of Marshall Field's department store was a kiosk that had just been set up, I guess, for the weekend. The theme of the kiosk was expect a miracle. So they had mugs, and pencils, and stickers. So I purchased the mug, I purchased the pencil, I purchased stickers. I used the mug every day. In those days, we didn't have cubicles. Everybody sat out to like a classroom in an office. So my mug was on display. The Expect the Miracle stickers I put on the front of my door. I put it inside my car. I put it on my inside my briefcase. So I was always reminded to expect God to do this miracle. The people in my office, they literally laughed out loud at me. It got to be very difficult to go to work. My lease was up on May 31st. On May 27th, nothing was happening for me. And it was the weekend before my lease was up. It was a Thursday. I got on the elevator, but I couldn't get off. I was too nervous and afraid to face my coworkers because they knew that's not going to happen. And now look at her. She doesn't have a place to live. She's given up her lease. She doesn't know where she's going. Look at her, and I rode the elevator for 20 minutes, up and down, up and down. I wouldn't let anybody on. I wouldn't. I was just on the elevator. Finally, I got off. I called a friend of mine. She talked to me, and she talked to me. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw my manager walking over with a perplexed look on his face. He came to my desk and he said, I don't know how you did it, but your transfer came through. You start to report to the new office in Baltimore on Monday. You leave now because you've got to pack. We will pay for the move, but you've got to pack. And I said, all my stuff is packed. My movers are coming on Saturday at 9:00. I'm ready to go. Well, everyone in the office was like, what? What? You think? We can't believe it. So one of the women who was probably the ringleader of the ridiculers came to me and asked if she could have my mug that said, expect a miracle. I said, you can, but under one condition, that when you get your miracle, because she wanted to transfer to Atlanta, when you get your miracle, pass it on to someone else. So you think the story ends there. I guess about 13, 14 years later, I was in a class. I was getting my master's degree, and I was in a class, career development. They asked us to do a resume of all of our experiences as a icebreaker. And so when I did mine, I told all of my experiences, and everyone else did theirs. At the end of the class, a woman came up to me and said, "Are you Betty Holt?" My married name. Are you, I mean, my single name. Are you Betty Holt from South Bend, Indiana? Yeah. I said, yeah. How do you know me? She's like, you're the woman who had the mug, Expect a Miracle? So I said, about that. She said, your mug has traveled all around the country.
Wow.
Your mug has a legend of its own. She said, your mug has been in Texas and Washington State. Your mug has been all around the country. The last I heard your mug, it was in Killeen, Texas. I don't know where it is now. If anybody in your audience has seen the Expect a Miracle mug, please let Carol know. Because I would love to know if it's continued its journey. But apparently the attitude of faith
Mhm.
worked for all of these people. Um, and they carried out the legend of passing it on. It led me to understand not necessarily how important faith is, how real it is, but I
Mhm.
still didn't know how
Mhm.
really real it was until I'm back in Baltimore. And mind you now, if you recall, the face that was above me said, "If you want me to help you with your mother, you have to come home now." But my mother wasn't sick. And she wasn't sick when I got home. But years later, the image that I saw, I married that man.
Oh my gosh.
Married him.
It's really interesting,
Yeah,
Bennett.
it's
Just
and when I met him, before I met him, he saw a picture of me and he sent word back by my cousin saying, "Tell her that I'm going to marry her." Well, I don't know about that, but things happened and we did get married and we didn't stay together long, but we never divorced. And years later, my mother did get very sick. I had to quit my job to take care of her before I retired, but I was able to retire on Social Security.
oh,
That helped me.